Derek Schuurman. I'm a professor of computer science at Calvin University, and it's my distinct pleasure to welcome Joanna Ng to the plenary session for this morning. Joanna is founder of the Devarium Design, an ex-IBMer, and an entrepreneurial startup, someone who's been involved in entrepreneurial startups. Her focus is in artificial intelligence and augmented cognition and integrating IoT and blockchain technologies as well. So she is on the forefront of some of the technologies that are shaping a lot of our world right now. She studied got her Bachelor of Science from the University of Calgary here in Canada, majored in computer science with a double major in psychology. She's also earned a degree in MBA degree from the Queen's University here in Ontario. And she was also one of the leaders of the AI workshop, pre-conference workshop that was held yesterday, where a bunch of folks connected with the ASA and others joined together to think about artificial intelligence, to share some of their work, and also to think about what does it mean to take 2,000 years of Christian social thought and think about how we engage the topic of artificial intelligence. The notion that the Bible, which was written in the Bronze and Iron Age, has a lot to say about how we conduct ourselves in the age of information and the age of AI. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Joanna to give our plenary this morning. And the title of her talk is How to Build Future Digital Infrastructures Using AI and the Confluence of Technologies That Reflect God's Kingdom Values. Welcome, Joanna. We're delighted to host you here today.
So I'm very honored to be invited to speak today and to be a part of the celebration of the 50th anniversary of Canadian Scientific Christian Affiliation as a Canadian. I really enjoyed the worship this morning. There was one line that really hit me hard. There was the first song. There was a line that said, "May God prosper your work and defend you." It spoke volumes to me because a lot of times, especially in these digital dark ages where digital platform could have a lot of unrighteousness, that when you do your work, peers might not attack your work. When they attack your work, they attack you. So I find that line very, very insightful, that may God prosper your work and defend you, and really spoke volume to me. Okay. So today, I'm going to talk about, AI in the next-gen infrastructure, in the next-gen digital infrastructure. And there is a confluence of emerging technology that are coming together at this point in time. And I wish I could turn back the clock, that I'm just a new grad, because all the fun is going to be in the next 20 years, 20, 30 years. There is an inevitable, in this confluence of technology, birthing the next-gen digital infrastructure cannot be stopped. The change is going to be so fundamental that it would change our very, very basic way of life. So blockchain is going to enable decentralized transaction. So your experience today having transactions server to server, all that will eventually be changed. When transaction become decentralized, it's going to be a different digital world. So Dell is the new tech buzzword of our world that stands for the decentralized autonomous organization, which means that we can now digitally divvy up the decision right, and then agilely make the decision and move the transaction ahead. And Web3 is going to be taking control back to some of your data. Tim Berners-Lee, the founder of the web, he is working on a platform called Solid to give the internet a little bit of an infrastructure where you can keep your data. And IoT is going to digitize everything in our life. And 5G, I have a 5G phone now. 5G is 100 times faster in download. It has 10 gigabyte per second, which is more than 100 times from my previous phone. And that enable agile and fast edge computing. That means that all these IoT and all these digitized devices will work more agilely and fast. And quantum computing and chip advancement would create a much faster computation. Okay, so I want to give this as a backdrop, how these emerging technology will birth a new generation of digital infrastructure deserve more than an hour talk by itself. But I want to give this as a backdrop for you, because all it's saying is that there will be more and more and more data to mature AI. And my talk today will focus more on AI. And so I want to give this as a backdrop. And okay, so because this is my very unique opportunity, not just to speak in an academic conference, but to speak at the Christian academic conference, I have to say this, because I have no other opportunity to say this without being, ushered off the stage. So, so I want you to, if there's anything that you take away from me today, I want you to remember this. If you remember this, I consider it mission accomplished. I think DW is greater than AI, and we are the carrier of DW. And what is DW? Oh, okay. DW is man being the embodiment of divine wisdom because of God's grace is far more fascinating than machine being the embodiment of AI because of man's venture. If you remember this, you'll look at AI completely differently. And I even make a t-shirt that I'm wearing because this is so important. This is no comparison. The divine is greater than artificial. Wisdom is greater than intelligence. And we are the only one that have divine wisdom greater than AI. So we have to know our position. And the reason why I'm saying this is I've seen a pandemic of the church having a spirit of fear towards AI instead of taking our position to show this as the testimony to the world. Okay. And so we need to change that. So if you get this, I'm done. We can go to lunch early. Okay, last question. Is there anyone's birthday today? Okay, so I'll give you a t-shirt. This t-shirt. Okay? As my gift. It is that important. Okay, all right. Wonderful. All right, okay. This is important because how the body of Christ globally carry ourselves in this chaotic age of AI is our testimony that speak power and usher in God's glory to show who God is through our work. May God prosper our work and defend us. Okay. All right. I'm done. Okay. But we have a lot to cover. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about, give you a brief introduction of what is AI, and I need to move a lot faster. I want to start with a lot of the three presumptions that are very fundamental to AI, but that have dire consequence. And I want to point out some of the bad practices that throw us into the chaos and what is the path forward. And then a last call is how church should arise to such a time as this. What is AI? I'll give you a definition. I'll give you a landscape of the different subdiscipline of AI, and I'll talk a little bit, give you a bird's eye view of how AI development process work. It is important that you understand this so that you won't be tricked by the narrative. I cannot watch the news without hearing a piece of news on AI, and so you need to be equipped because it is an age of deception, and so we need to be equipped with the truth and also with the facts. Okay, what's the definition of AI? 1950, Alan Turing, the Imitation Game movie, if you watch it, asked and published a paper called Can Machine Think? So he designed the Turing test. But he didn't coin the term AI. In 1956, there is a workshop like the one that we had yesterday. There's a workshop at a conference at Dartmouth University. 6 researchers present the word and coin the term. And they come up with this definition that still stands today. And the definition is the construction of computer programs that engage in tasks that are currently more satisfactorily performed by humans because they require high-level mental process, such as perception, learning, memory, organization, and critical reasoning. Okay. So, some example of this higher level brain function that people want to digitize include learning at scale, speech recognition, computer vision, natural language processing, generative content, and a lot more. Now, I want to give you a landscape of AI. Okay, so you hear a lot about the generative AI as in ChatGPT. It's just a very small dot down there. Okay, so it's just a very, very small dot. The x-axis is a spectrum of the different AI model. The y-axis is a different AI problem domain, and the reason it is important. So the symbolic AI are notational. They are formal. It is another thing called classic AI. They are rule-based. They are heavily encoded. And for those who know and have worked with it, I work with this quite a bit. There is semantic web, ontology, ontology web language, OWL. So those are on the spectrum of symbolic side. So I'll give you a very quick example. If I say Sam is my brother, then you say, oh, who's your sibling? Sam will come up. If I say, if you ask who's my relative, Sam will also come up. But I never say Sam is my sibling. So that's the kind of symbolic encoding, formal logic reasoning. But people don't want to spend time there because it takes a lot of time. So what most people do now is to spend a lot of time on subsymbolic AI. And subsymbolic AI is what everybody is spending a lot of time on, and ChatGPT is a kind of subsymbolic AI. And subsymbolic AI, contrary to symbolic AI, you don't learn from rules and encoding. You learn from big data. There is no programming. The subsymbolic AI is basically math, trying to find, it's basically statistical model, central limit theorem, and trying to find a formula that fit the data and do algorithmic and predict observation of patterns. So there's a lot of people spending time there now. Okay, so what is the process? So first you collect data and you prepare data. A lot of data, and then you use different learning model from neural network to, CNN, like there are various different kinds of learning model, and then you do prediction. Okay? So that's like in a bird's view. Now, it is important for you to understand this because most people only see the usage. They don't understand the underlying. You need to understand how it comes about. Because when you see the usage, you need to ask questions. Okay, so I remember 15 years ago, there was a website that if you type the portion of vegetable you eat, the minutes you exercise, it will predict how many more years you can live. And the website was so heavily hit, it was taken down within a day because it just couldn't carry the load. But everyone was so excited. But you need to ask, well, how did you come up with that? Like, if I say I eat no vegetable and not exercise, you tell me you're going to die in 6 months. So I want to know why. I want to know where did you come up with that conclusion, right? So that's why it is very important to equip yourself about this process so that you ask questions. Okay. Now that you know this, then I'm going to talk about the Turing, some of the presumption that lead us down a path that might not be the most ideal. Okay, so these are the 3 presumptions. Let's get to it very quickly. So we never asked this. If AI is the answer, what is the question? Have you ever asked that? Okay, what is the why of AI? Why AI? Okay. So Turing's AI question, which is still the question today, is can machine think? So if Turing test, and that, because of that, the Turing test become the only gold standard test of AI. But it has a dire consequence. It set up the stage for man to compete with machine, which is silly. Okay, so here's a Turing test, okay? You have this person as the questioner, asking a question, and you have both the computer and the human responding. Okay, so this is to prove that human behavior that are not intelligent or intelligent behavior by the machine that human doesn't have. So that's the Turing test. And because of that, it sets the trajectory of AI this way. Man and machine competition. So we are here today, artificial narrow intelligence, which means we are, okay, according to the Turing test, man is still smarter than the machine. Okay. And that's AI, technologists are not going to stay there. Everyone is doing the gold rush to be the first to claim machine is as smart as human. That's the second stage. And the ultimate goal is artificial super intelligence, where machine is smarter than man, is the competition of who gets there first. Okay, so I'm not going to name names, just so I won't get into any legal thing, but I can tell you every big tech name that you can name, and there you can look up who are the top 5 tech name. They are all trying everything they possibly can to claim AGI and then ASI. So the competition is on. Okay. And there are some signs of hope, right? Like in 1997, IBM Deep Blue beat the world's chess master. And in 2011, IBM Watson won Jeopardy with the top guy, Ken Jennings, from Jeopardy. And then in 2016, that Google DeepMind won the World Championship of Go. So that's some sign, right? It seems like there's some sign. Okay. So we compete on performance, but eventually we are actually compete on sovereignty, control, autonomy, purpose, identity, and superiority. And that sent us down a rat race. And that is the biggest deception that is on the news every day, and that everyone was worrying, would we be extinct? Okay. So this is the point of singularity, which is the point that cross over when machine becomes smarter than man. How long does it take? In this paper in 2016, there is a survey done among all the AI technologists. So according to this 2016 survey among the AI scientists, generally, they predict that by 2075, 125 years from Turing, setting up the Turing machine, that we will arrive AGI. And then 30 years from then, in 2105, that we will attain, human race will attain artificial superintelligence. I know I won't be around to know if it is true or not, but I ask, is arriving ASI a function of time? Or is it a function of nature? Very, very important question. If it's a function of nature, then it's not a function of time. Give it 300 more years, it might not still be there. Okay. And man created machine intelligence as a function of 155 years, greater than God created man intelligence. I think the church should have an answer on that. Okay. The dire consequence is that the gold rush competition means that fast is to cut corner, and because of that step, there are, hurts done in the society as we see today, and I'll try to point out some today, that are at the expense of the user and the society at large. Given the scarcity of AI skills and talent, I know I'm not going to name the company by name, but company, put thousands of their top programmers to, work on this brain project as ASI. It is a hefty opportunity cost to apply AI for good. So here's the quote from this book, Essential Math for AI. Turing tests might be setting us up to a limited goal and direction of AI research, and I totally agree. And here's the confusion. Just because machine can do some tasks better than man, it doesn't mean automatically that man is inferior to the machine. And I call it the AP of AI. It's an artificial problem of artificial intelligence because the technology in AI is overhyped, while man, without a fight, quickly allow others to reduce our worth as men. So that's the artificial problem of AI. It's the AP of AI. Okay. If AI is the answer, is there another more worthy why? Can we ask another question that is more life-giving, right? I think one of the DW that Jesus gave and taught us is that by the fruit, you know the tree. Okay? So by the fruit of AI, we are on the wrong path because of all the negativity that you are experiencing today, all the different fear that are, in the news every day. So is there another question that's more life-giving? How about this? How can men, if I ask, instead of asking, can machine think? If we ask another question, which is, how can men leverage what machines do best to build a better life and a better world? I think that's a better question. If we have another test, not a Turing test, but the A+ test, that if before and after having AI and not AI, there is in augmented computing, there's a A+ factor, which is how much are you better? How's your life better because of this? I think this is a more worthwhile test than the Turing test. The second presumption that is dire. Okay. This is a direct quote from an interview that Guardian did before Stephen Hawking passed away. This is the direct quote from him. He said, and it is a position that a lot of the AI scientists share. And that's why they believe in ASI, is because of this presumption that they regard brain as a computer, and that when the brain stops working, then everything stops. And there's no heaven and there's no afterlife. So that's, but the Bible tells us we are made in God's image. So even with my non-Christian colleague, I ask them, I point to a computer, you believe you are like that? Deep in their heart, no, my gut's telling me I'm more than that. I was like, thank you. It's not much of a discussion. Okay. So Bible said we are a spirit, okay? With or without a body, our spirit lives on. But on this earth, we have a body and we have a soul, and they're connected. And in our soul, we have our will, our mind, and our emotion. And then if you're a Christian, your spirit that was dead is reconnected to God. So you can, through the Holy Spirit, know Christ more, as Christ has said that through the Holy Spirit you know me. And then we know the Father. That's according to 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 23. So I'm trying to get a component system diagram of man. Then I ask, man is more, so we all know by this component diagram that man is more than HI. Then I ask, what can you digitize? Okay, so yeah, you can digitize some intelligence, but there's a lot of pieces here that you can't digitize. Okay, so where is the ASI goal? Okay, so let's take a look at the element. Intelligence, okay? Intelligence might be a little dot between mind and will. And machine learning can only do correlation because it's purely statistics, okay? It doesn't do causation, okay? So I remember one of the first projects I did with NYPD. There was this correlation that what is the lowest crime rate of the entire year of 365 days? Super Bowl Sunday. So, but there's no causation. Why was that? Is it because all the bad guys are watching the big game? Nobody knows, right? But so it's all statistics. It's all correlation, looking at patterns within the data. So if you want causation, it needs a human brain. Also, I talked about all the advancement of computers, winning the chess, winning the Go, winning Jeopardy. Okay. None of them can be transferred to similar problem in another problem domain, which is very dumb. Because if you look at chess game, it's just a traversal of trees so that they have more computing power to look ahead 10, 11, 12 steps ahead that my brain couldn't do, and that's why they won, right? But that's a very simple problem-solving technique that machines do better than men. But that generic problem-solving mechanism cannot be transposed to another problem domain, which also have that pattern of problem-solving. So also, in large language model, is a plane of syntax with no semantics, incapable of meaning and significance, and there's no understanding. What do I mean by that? There's no feeling. So I play with Elijah a bit, which is another echo game, which is a simple thing. So it pick up the keywords, right, and play it back to you so that you have this illusion of being understood. So now you can tell the machine, my mother is sick, seriously sick in the hospital. Then the Elijah would say, oh, I'm sorry to hear that your mother is sick, so just play back. Do you want me to order hamburger? If my husband say that, he won't live another second, right? But there is no semantics. There's no understanding of what that stream of text that my mother is seriously sick in the hospital mean. There's no meaning. Okay. So Is it intelligent? Okay. Machine is incapable of reasoning. Not yet, because the investment in the symbolic AI is very labor intensive and didn't make much progress lately. So AI might answer a lot more of the what, when, and who, but it's incapable to discover the how and the why. So generalization of learned knowledge is a hallmark of human intelligence. I really believe in that. Okay, let's talk about emotion. Effective computing, this is a term actually coined by a Christian. What does it do? It can recognize emotion, it can do sentiment analysis, and it can generate content with element of emotions expression and others. So that's pretty smart, right? But AI is incapable of eliciting or experiencing emotion. The source of human emotion comes from our inner being, a part of being God's image. And without that, is there any meaning if a computer vision saw poorly nourished children coming from Africa would make the machine cry? Where did that come from? Okay, so this is something that really distinguishes the machine from the man, is that there is no empathy, no compassion. In our social standard then, AI is by definition, what do we in our society call people with no emotion and no compassion? We call them narcissists, right? So do you want narcissists to run the world if we ever get to ASI? Okay. So there was this paper that called AI is but a stochastic parrot. You know what's a stochastic parrot? I'll tell you what it is. So a few years back in 2019, Raptor, Canadian Toronto team, was first time playing the final. And we won, right? Raptors won. But then we didn't win simply, we won with overtime, right? With point by point, one after another. So in the overtime, when the Raptors were playing, my husband was watching, and then I say to my husband, let's go to Europe. And he'll say, yeah, let's go. That's a stochastic parrot, because is there any semantic that will lead to action? He's just trying to send me away, right? So, so that's the syntax and semantic difference, right? Because there's nothing that mean anything. It's just generative AI is just playing around a sequence of tokens that copy the patterns in the output that make it look like reasonable chatting. Okay. Wisdom is uniquely man's privilege. Remember I said if you're a Christian, born again, your spirit is reconnected with the Holy Spirit. Okay? And God said, you ask me, I'll answer you. I'll show you great and unsearchable things. So, okay, I'm not a theologian, but I just try to summarize this from my common sense. Absolutely need a lot of work. I think this is a discipline by itself, but there is a distinct difference between wisdom and intelligence. Intelligence focuses on the performance. Wisdom, the effect would show. If things are done with wisdom, from the fruit you know the tree. There's harmony, there's peace, there's a sense of justice, there's a sense of everyone's respected, fruitfulness, love, purity, prosperity. But intelligence is only thinking about performance, cost effectiveness, scalability, and profitability. There is no why. Okay? So it can be very dangerous Hitler was trying to industrialize how to kill people. So you can be very smart and do very bad things. You know, that's the difference between intelligence and wisdom. Okay. So what are the things that machine outperform man? Here are the things. It processes data at scale. So you can have evidence-based decision, which is very critical in the medical field right now. The knowledge retention and retrieval is more reliable and efficient. And, you know, as I get older, I totally appreciate that. And I have no problem with that, but it didn't make me any inferior as a man. Okay. Pattern recognition from data at scale. The computation, has accuracy and speed. It doesn't get tired, right? Reliable and algorithmic, execution. And man is superior over AI in also many things. So creativity, intuition, love, empathy, compassion, purpose, ethics. We have the whys, we have the wisdom, judgment, and many other things. So instead of a competition, man and machine should collaborate. And there are many ways that we apply AI that bring blessings to lives that makes this world a better place. Dementia patients, people with physical limitation, how can I have relatives who cannot see? Is there a way that the AI can use computer vision to compensate some of the limitation in seeing? There's so much more room to use AI for good. Okay, the third presumption that sends us down the wrong path is about data. So here's the language that are very, very everyday if you are in the AI field. Data is the new oil. Data is the ground truth. So anyone in the field, you know, dare not raise up their hand and disagree because that's how, you know, this is the way our world is. Okay. So the top 5 oligopolies accumulating data over the 30-some years of the internet and now monopolize the power of data. And with their dominance in data size and their dominance in capital, they have a oligarchy position that are not guarded. So if the data is the new oil, then where is the fair trade? Where's the fair trade of data? Okay. Enormous data plus drastic processing power with lots of money is what create the AI acceleration as you and I see today. Okay. So this is a very old chart that I remember I once used 10 some years ago. And then we are saying, isn't it great that, you know, we don't need to pay for anything, right? We don't pay for Facebook. We don't pay for Google search. Even the great Google map that is every day now, none of us get paid. So isn't that great? And that, you know, things are free. And then you're saying, if things are free, then you are the product, which is exactly what happened. We are the product. But do we know ahead of time? I don't think so. I was there and at the time, and enterprise like IBM was scratching our heads like, they give everything free. How are they going to make money? I remember asking that question in one of the management meeting, maybe in around 2005, 2010-ish. And, you know, because we are the product, but we didn't know that ahead of time. We found out after the fact. It's like, wait a minute, right? Okay. The language of new oil neutralized the issue, right? Because we don't need to ever ask where oil come from. Oil is there, right? So we never need to ask the source of data. We never say who owned the oil, right? I mean, it's natural resource, right? And there's no right of data. So the enormous data that trained the AI model, as we've seen in ChatGPT and BART and other things, may be stolen, profited, used without consent. It could be a copyrighted content, privately owned intellectual property of others, and a violation of usage right. So this author of the book called Agnes of AI say this. So data is now the dehumanized, bloodless word. Because data is oil. It's really dehumanizing. Because in it, has your health data. I wear an Apple Watch, right? There's a lot of health data there, right? And it's my data, but it's making Apple having their stock price up. And I don't get a dime from it. Okay. So I will talk a little bit more about that later. Okay. So you know this. So when you get an answer, you need to ask question. Okay. So I'll give you two scenarios. My very first project was doing AI in using U.S. veterans' health database. Okay, so I have a couple millions of health record from the U.S. veteran as a reduced version of it. And then we just use very simple logistic regression. And because the veterans 80% of them have high blood pressure. They're like 140-ish high. So when we ask the question, well, Sam has the blood pressure on the high end, 150. Is he okay? The answer will be okay. Because from the data, everyone is 150. What does your doctor tell you? Well, you just Google, if your blood pressure is 160, please go to ER, right? So there is an objective truth. That's a first principle truth. No matter what your data say, that the normal blood pressure is around 120. So is data the ground truth? Okay, second scenario. Amazon Recruit in 2014, I remember there's a paper being published about that. They used 10 years worth of resume and who they hire as a result to learn how to automate a hiring process. And very quickly, they scrapped the project because women will never get hired. Anyone who graduated from a women's college is not hired because it's not the success rate that they pick because the data are mostly men. Okay. So there is a gender bias in hiring, and very quickly it got scrapped because data doesn't, so data only show a status quo. It's not the ideal that is encoded in the data. Okay. So garbage in, garbage out. Okay? This is what we need to know. If you ever use any of the AI solution, the first thing you ask is, where's your data? Okay? Because the first principle truth is not in the data, as I show you in two examples. Okay? All right. Let's see why the data is so messed up. So in the internet, this is a very basic interaction model, which is HTTP request and HTTP response. So who did the request? It's the user who did the request, which means that if you don't hit any link, there is zero activity on the server side. That's the way it is. So in order to have more engagement on the server side, they give algorithm to induce you to click and like and comment in order to generate more HTTP requests from the user to the server. So anytime you hit anything, someone on the server side is very happy. So because user engagement means more ads, more dollar. And because of that, most of the content use shocking headlines that are misleading. And it doesn't matter whether it's true or not, because being true is not the point. enticing you to click is the point. So you can have an ad and say, oh, Prime Minister Trudeau is seen with another woman. Everybody click, click, click. But it doesn't have to be true. It's just to get you click. Okay? So that's full of misleading content like that feed to the user's bias with algorithm. So this is contaminated. The other problem is that the data is skewed. Okay? Reddit, we heavily used, I used it. 67% of them are men. 67% are in the younger generation. Wikipedia, only 8.8 to 15% are female. And the overrepresented user are the younger one and the one from the developed country. And also, this is the thing, people with money can pay to have a lot more content put into the internet that generative AI can learn from and propagate the misrepresentation. So there is encoding bias of stereotype association, negative sentiment, and toxic content. So this lady, Gerbrol, used to work from Google, and after she published this paper called The Danger of Stochastic Parrot, she got fired. She's telling the truth. That there are languages that are discriminatory. So, for example, in the internet, there's a lot of when engineers are described, then the guy would be described as engineers. So, female engineer is a thing, and that's all over the internet. And it teach the generative AI to think that female engineers are exception. I'm an engineer. What's your problem? Right? So there's just a simple example that is all over the data. Okay. So statistics know, this is the quote, torture the data enough, it will confess to anything. Okay. George Bernard Shaw said, beware of false knowledge is more dangerous than not knowing. And this is the danger of subsymbolic AI. Okay. And, in statistics, there's noise data. And there's also the significance level because of the central limit theorem. Causal analysis of the noise data is critical because some are not noise. But it needs a human to analyze it. And it could mean life and death. Imagine if this is a military situation. You better analyze those noise data right before someone hit a button. Okay. When data is contaminated, that fuel the automated data-driven decisions and predictions, then bias, discrimination, injustice happen. Inaccuracy come from noise data, cannot be fixed by algorithm. It can only be fixed by human because causal analysis can only be done by human. Inaccuracy of these AI decisions are consequential. They are here today. I'll give you an example. In LinkedIn, if you put a post to hire, there are tens and thousands of resumes, and as a hiring manager, you can only afford to interview maybe at max 10. How are those 10 selected? Based on AI. Are those data trusted? So these things are already affecting, like the automated data-driven decision from contaminated data that result in biases and discrimination are likely happening. We don't know because they're all black boxes. And it's affecting, is there fair hiring? What about insurance? Am I fairly evaluated for risk? What about mortgage and loan approval? What about criminal profiling? So let me quickly talk about the software development and commercialization process. You know this guy? Immediately after ChatGPT was put out, he said this: AI will likely put us into the end of the world, a light out for humanity. Right after ChatGPT was out. Is it because he cared that we would be wiped out? Or is it a marketing stunt for ChatGPT? Let's take a look. We know the importance of garbage in, garbage out. What data can be trusted to solve the problem at hand? It is the data that are relevant to the problem space, that data that has quality, that is accurate, that's reliable, that's up to date. There is a very, very critical process called data curation, which is key to valuable AI that come from accurate data that include collection, cleaning, integration, verification, proper labeling, and data transparency. So when size of data become a volume of garbage, then its size is the disadvantage. So ChatGPT stated that they are trained on massive data set comprised of various sources from the internet, but the sources are not disclosed. There is no transparency. AI is expensive and time-consuming. If the goal is to be the first that win the competition of ASI, then for the sake of stock price, for the sake of profits, being first and fast is more important than producing valuable AI with accuracy. Okay, I do this for a living for more than 20 years, so I enjoy. The job was to harvest profitable research into product development that commercialize the product into users' hand. And there is a discipline in it. Okay, there is a handshake. There is a line that when a company put what you create in the hands of the user, there is a liability. When we did beta, we select customer who understand our constraint, and we carefully document the constraint. We went through it with lawyer so that the customer whom we gave the beta to know what we do not test finish and what the constraints are. Because there's a liability. So when scientists and technologists put AI in the hands of public, as a product, they should incur liability. But instead, in the ChatGPT, you are their tester. They call it beta. So it's not a product. So there's no legal liability. There is no usage warning. There is no scoping to limit the negative effect because it's a beta. You know, it is a irresponsible commercialization that results in civilian harm. AI as a product must incur liability like any other drugs. The government disallow pharmaceutical company to put drugs without showing you their test results, right? Why would they let tech company put AI in users' hand without being transparent on the data and their methodology? AI product companies have an obligation to make AI products safe before putting it in users' hand. They need to specify what are the expected usages, what are the constraints, what are the unexpected usage, and what are the warranties of use, such that when users in public suffer from harm and injury, there is a right to seek liability claim, negligence, design defects, code defects, failure to warn, misrepresentation, breach of warranty. And this is the product liability law that the lawyers are now coming up to apply to AI. It's about time. Okay, so this is a very difficult chart for me to make because the people who say these things are very big name in the industry. And that's why I really like that line, that may the Lord prosper your work and protect you. Okay, so this is a very a difficult chart to make, but it's very, very necessary. When scientists and technologists inflate machine capabilities, and these are the machine capabilities we all know about, and personify these human-like performance that AI does better than man, to imply or right out declare the sanction of AI and promote AI as a legal entity to take blames and liability, and shield man from the responsibility of our own action, these scientists and technologists are guilty of creating the biggest deception in the history of technology industry. A deception that does harm and induce fear instead of improving lives and making the life better. This is the deception. A lot of the capability that you see here that are listed, they are like if you were to ask me, the AI technology itself is not the problem. It is math, it is statistics. If you are told about the significance level, then everything's fine if you use it according to design. But because of the hype of the technology by scientists themselves, and also reduce the worth and the responsibility of man, that create fear. Making the invention to take the blame of the inventor's liability is a cheap shot. And I say it as an inventor myself. I have 49 patents granted to my name. I have the right to say that. Okay, so the path forward. How should we go forward? Okay. There is a need for global standard. So this is from a European organization, and this is a right list of standard. But I really like the lower part, that there needs to be an FDA equivalent of AI products. The data used should be certified. The algorithm and the model used should be certified. Like if you give their data source to any data scientist, they will be able to tell you, is it clean and reliable, accurate data? Okay. And we need to assess impact. There needs to be an FDA equivalent of AI solution. Instead of having open AI, sorry, I bore you. Instead of having open AI just irresponsibly give ChatGPT using data from internet that are skewed and untrustworthy. Why would that happen? Why would that beta be allowed at all? Okay. There's another thing called explainable AI. Okay. So if you have the governance, right, you need technology to test it. So if you have the governance that thou shalt not drive faster than 100 kilometers on the highway, this is Canadian, so we say kilometer. I remember in my first car, our speedometer didn't work. So when I say to my husband, stop speeding, and then he said, no, I'm not. And I look at the speedometer, it was 0. And I'm sure he was driving 140, and that's why So the same thing for AI. You have the legislation, right? But you need the speedometer equivalent. So that's what explainable AI is, which is to make the data explainable, make the prediction explainable, make the algorithm explainable. The fact that ChatGPT keep it a black box is unacceptable, irresponsible. And there needs to be this lower part, right? That, in computer vision, this is a cat. Then you can ask in the interface and say, what are the features that make you think it's a cat? Okay. So in the hiring case, this is still evolving. Explainable AI is not mature for use yet. But in the future, you can now say, oh, you recommend candidate X. Then you can say, what is the sample size between gender? You can ask that kind of question. And that's why explainable AI is very critical to make the black box not the black box, because we should not accept the black box. Design thinking approach to AI is very important. In design thinking, the methodology starts with empathy with stakeholder. Centric AI is done because we can. We can do the math, we can do the stat. Human-centric AI is done because we care. There is a difference. So I always ask my colleague, when we get to ASI, whose life would get better? How the world is better? If not, then why are we spending our time there? Closing. Church arise for such a time as this. I'll speak to three groups of people. As people of God, and as his witness to his gospel in this earth, we need to cast out the spirit of fear. We need to seize the opportune time. One of the shocking discovery is that when we talk about man versus machine, it opened up doors to talk about the gospel. When I simply nudge my colleagues, it's like, don't you think wisdom is better than intelligence? And they all say, yeah, duh. It's not that hard, right? So when we talk about AI, it forces us to think about how I think of myself. Who am I? Should I accept to be considered as like that machine? Right? And push them to say, if I'm made more than that, then what's my purpose in life? Why am I on earth? Right? It's such a good door opening to talk about the gospel, and we need to seize this opportune time. And we need to watch against church making AI an idol. I'm not going to name names, but last week I was almost yelling at some pastor because they want to preach AI on Sunday. I think I want to hit them on the head. It's like never talk about AI on Sunday. You always talk about Christ and the gospel. So do not make AI our idol. As citizens of this earth, we need to advocate government for governance, as I previously talked before. So this is the particular group for Christians as AI scientists and technologists. We are his priests. Revelation chapter 1 verse 5, we are called to be in his kingdom's priest in the AI space for such a time as this. You've seen how chaotic this whole AI is making the world. This is our Esther's moment. Let us be his light in the darkness. Even non-Christians seeing light, they notice the light. So he has a call upon our life. Like if we are AI scientists and technologists and a Christian, this is our Esther moment. The world needs to see his light through our work. That God prosper our work and defend us. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness. So here's my function. AI to bless is a function of DW. So when we make AI a dependent variable of DW, who is our independent source, not an independent variable, then AI through our hands would bring fruit to bless. Our job is to decipher deception. So here's a very, very good verse applicable of our time. We demolish argument and pretension that set itself up against the knowledge of God. And we take captive thoughts and make them obedient to Christ. And we do what is right, what is true, noble, right, pure, lovable, admirable, and excellent. That's the priest. That's the kingdom priest for the AI scientists and technologists. This is our Esther moment, and this is our job. So I have taken you through the deception of AI through core presumption. I have taken you through some of the bad practices in software development and commercialization of AI that got us into a mess right now. And there is a very sketchy path of forward. And I hope you enjoyed this talk. And this is a book that I put out last year. And I hope you enjoy reading it too. And it's my honor to talk to you today. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Joanna, for that inspiring talk. And it's really delightful to see Christians, competent Christians, at the forefront of this conversation and trying to point us to Christ while trying to develop responsible technology with some of these creational possibilities. So I think we have time for 2 questions. I know I'm standing between you and the refreshment break, but I think this is such a key topic that we want to take at least 2 questions. And I want to put in a quick plug as well for the Christians in Engineering and Science and Technology. That's a subgroup of the ASA. We have our own Facebook page. There's always little conversations going on there. So if you're not already part of that and you're in the field of technology, join the CEST subgroup of the ASA. So I saw Rob had his hand up.
Thanks a lot, Joanna. You raised a number of incredibly interesting issues. I have like a dozen questions, but I'll just ask one related to the bias issue. One would say there is, you made the case there's bias in AI based on the data set. But another person might say in the good old days, 50 years ago, when we had paper resumes, there was a lot of bias in hiring. So do you see the bias worse than 50 years ago, about the same, or are we actually improving?
Okay. So 50 years ago on the paper version, our bias is based on much smaller data set, which is whatever I know and remember in my brain. But the bias coming from massive learning is the bias coming from massive internet data accumulated over 30 years. That could be worse because these are truly massively informed data. So what I'm saying is that we have to understand the limitation of data. The data represent the state of the world at a point in time, which is very different from the ideal we want to go to. And that's why giving the override with man's wisdom is so critical, because your aspiration would override certain decision. The hiring based on automation come from data that are biased. You and I cannot go back in history and create more female instance resume in the database. It just didn't happen. It's just the way it was. But if you base on the status quo of massive data to automate decision, then you are perpetuating the bias in the data. But we all aspire a higher ideal, right? And that can only come from human writing the automated decision.
Thank you for the great presentation. Jacques Ellul, in the book The Technological Bluff, argued that technology begins to dictate behavior because then it's the most available resource. Any recommendations for the likelihood that this actually, kind of takes over? The decision is being made because we have the technological ability to do something, not because it's right, but because that's the technology we have.
It's a choice of man. It's a choice of man. Technology doesn't have to dictate behavior. But it's getting harder and harder, especially for the younger generation. And that's why I come from the community of scientists and technologists. I used to do things because we can. Inventions was made because it's cute. We never, it's just, we had the breakthrough and we made it. And filing pattern is important, and coming to AI is really humbling because for the first time, I have to think carefully why. Like start with why. And there are many things that technology can do, but I think whether you are a Christian or not, I think scientists and technologists needs to ask more of who benefit from it. Is the world a better place? And that's why at the end I introduced the design thinking approach of AI, which has a lot more opportunity to make people's life better, to solve the climate issue. I know some of the Christian group are using AI to spot human trafficking patterns, right? So you can advance the science without dehumanizing ourselves at the basic. And then more positively, we can do the science to make breakthrough in the algorithm instead of not dehumanizing, to do a step more, which is to bring better lives and make the world a better place. It's up to us. It's totally up to us.
All right. Yeah, the phrase that keeps going through my mind is not everything that counts can be counted, right? And the need for wisdom and for Christians to also engage this really important and critical area. So let's thank Joanna again for
Thank you.